Hi, everyone, and welcome to a mini episode of Alpine Intel's The Savvy Adjuster podcast. Alpine Intel's Customer Education Director, Jay Dykstra, once again joining me, and he's going to expand on our discussion we had during our longer episode, which focused primarily on the differences between lightning and high voltage surge damage to electronics. Now we're going to talk about something that I promise, are frequently asked about: how to protect electrical equipment from these perils. Jay, first and foremost, thanks again for joining us here.
Absolutely. Glad to be back. And again, this is the other side of that equation of, hey, we have things damaged and I don't want things damaged at my house. What am I going to do? We'll get a little bit further into that. So,
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. I would love for you to walk us through some of the measures that homeowners can take, right, to reduce the risk of surge and lightning damages.
all right. So let's start with the physical ways we can, avoid lightning damage to our homes. And this is much more common in commercial, although there's parts of the country where this is becoming a little bit more practical in a residential setting. But that's actually the use of lightning rods. Right. Hopefully you've heard that before and things like that. It is a real thing. They put metal rods up on top of the highest points of the building, and the theory is you want lightning to hit those, and they're all connected to good conducting metal wire that leads to grounding rods. So you're directing the lightning from going further into the building and damaging things in our building to the ground, which is kind of where the electrical energy wants to go anyway, right? So again, not as common in residential settings, more in commercial, but you see a lot in like farm and agricultural setting up on the barns and things like that. So, and I wouldn't be surprised in maybe in the future, especially in areas that are more prone to lightning and some of the Midwest, Texas, Florida, some of those places where it doesn't become a little bit more popular or even maybe even dictated at some point. Who knows that you have to have lightning rods to um, divert that energy. But for the rest of us, right? And for your standard homeowner and things like that, you don't have the lightning rods. And how do you protect, from lightning? You can't really protect, right? If you get hit or you don't get hit, although, revisit our other podcast, we talk about it's not as common as you think, right? But it's the surge. It's inside of our electrical systems where this energy ends up that damages our products. So how do we protect those products, right? Well, everybody's heard it before. Surge protectors, right? That's kind of the generic term for it, but there's different levels of surge protection if you weren't aware of that, right? Probably the most common that most of us think about are the ones you buy either on a website or you go to a box store or somewhere, and it's what we would call a point of use surge protector. It's like a power strip, right? But not all power strips are surge protectors, so just make sure you know that. And not all surge protectors that you plug in are created equal either. So you got to know that. These are actually called Type 3 surge protection devices, right? You're plugging them in. They have some of these electronics in them that are helping keep a surge that's coming through to go to your electronics. All right. So let's go into a couple other types and I'll talk about how these things actually work. Right. The next level up of that would be what's now a type 2. Right. And that's where you would, some people refer to these as a whole home surge protection system. All right. It's probably in your electrical panel. It might be physically inside it. It might actually take the place of one of your breakers in your panel, or it's attached just to the outside of the panel. So it's at the electrical panel. So that's type 2. Those are better than point of use, but they're still not infallible. And I'm going to tell you about that here in a little bit. One thing to note, and this is going to come into play on new houses, the 2024 electrical code, the National Electrical Code, now dictates, if the state has adopted the 2024 electrical code, new homes, you have to have a type 2 electrical surge protection system built in when you build that house. So more and more houses are going to have these that are being built. So guess what? Adjusters are going to see these more and more because you might not have seen these too often in a claim. You're going to start seeing them because it's going to be required in these homes. All right. The best you can get for your money is what's referred to as a Type 1 surge protection system. We just don't see a lot of these out there because of this. They cost a lot of money. These would be installed well before your electrical panel. So between your service entrance drop, and your panel, still maybe even outside, is this Type 1 surge protection system. So anything coming gets handled or tries to get handled before it even gets to your electrical panel, right? Because that one inside your panel might actually get damaged. The surge protector then stops it from going out to your circuits, but your panel still could get damaged. This Type 1 is more expensive, would even protect for that, right? So let me go on a little bit more and talk about how these surge protectors work. So there's inside these, whether it's the Type 1 or even the Type 3, they have fine electronics in them. And the term I want to use out there is metal oxide varistors, right? Talking about technical, right? You asked me to be a little technical. There's your technical part. Those are the actual devices in these surge protectors that absorb this surge energy. All right. And that's what's keeping it from going down line and damaging further things down the line. Right. And depending on the size of it, depends on the size or the number of these metal oxides varistors, right? And the term you're going to hear out there when you go buy one of these things, or if you're going to install one of these things, is joules, right? That's an electrical term. We don't really need to understand exactly what that is because it's very complicated. But you could use some round numbers, like if your system was rated at 1,000 joules, right, which is a pretty good one, right? If you had a surge that was 2,000 joules in strength, right? Because maybe it was a surge from a on-site lightning strike or something like that, your surge protector is not going to work, right? Because you've exceeded the capacity of these varistors. So it goes on past it and still causes damage, right? Something else people don't realize, and this one's hard for me to swallow as well, is these things wear out over time, right? It's not something you install and it's good for the rest of its life. Every time one of these things gets hit by a surge, it diminishes its capacity and capability to do the next surge. So if you live in an area that has known surges, and there are areas of the country, there are certain grids that they have more surges, right? You're going to go through multiple surge protector systems probably because eventually they wear out. Your little point of use ones have a little red light on them. When they're no good anymore, that little red light comes on. You're like, I wonder what happened. It got hit so many times, it's now not protecting anymore. And it just goes on. That's just the bigger they are, the more expensive are. They might have more joule ratings. It doesn't mean they're always going to protect everything. If it's a huge lightning surge, or that you've had lots of surges over time, you can just basically they wear out. They have a lifespan. So if you have a bunch of those in your house protecting your TVs and things like that, and they're 6, 7 years old, you're at risk because they are not the same as what they were when you bought them originally and installed them. So lot of things with that. Another thing to consider is like you have this whole home surge protector, or the one outside. If you watched or listened to our other version of the of this podcast, we talked about things within our homes causing surges. Things in our homes that electrical surge may never go back through a surge protector to be arrested, right? These surge arresters. So you got to be careful on that as well. So depending on how your system's set up, your circuits are set up, the things in your home causing these surges, your HVAC compressor, your refrigerator, things like that, if it's not going back through the panel, it's just going further down the line because it's not wired right or something like that. All best intentions are now to the wayside because you've had something bypass that and cause other damages that you thought you were catching and you really weren't. So
Sure.
hopefully that helps. If you have some follow-up questions on that, if that wasn't clear enough, I'd be glad to try to clarify.
No, no, I think you covered a lot of great points there. And you were mentioning lightning rods being maybe more applicable in commercial settings, but I've seen some houses around that are 8, 9, 10,000 square feet that are a commercial building, right? So you may
Yeah.
be seeing those on the residential side as well. No, that's great. I think the point of it all is it is very important to have these products in place, but nothing's 100%, right? Power will find a way sometimes. And listener, if you want to hear an example of how that may happen, Jay shared an example in our longer episode about lightning blowing a hole directly through a roof. That is pretty interesting. So I urge you to listen to the longer episode. A lot of good information in there as well. But Jay, thank you as always for joining and being our guest here again today.
Absolutely. Always glad to help out, and good luck out there, everybody. These can be challenging claims, and make sure you get the needed help when you need it, because these a lot to know, and not something a adjuster can do on their own all the time. So.
Yep, absolutely. Well, listeners, thank you again to you for joining. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the Savvy Adjuster podcast on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on any of these valuable insights from our Alpine Intel experts. Thanks again for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.